Elena Morris and Maya Bennett had been inseparable for over a decade. Two friends who shared laughter, secrets, and the kind of trust most people spend a lifetime searching for. But behind the smiles and late-night conversations, a dangerous web of deceit was quietly unfolding. One that would turn friendship into betrayal, ordinary routines into a nightmare, and a quiet lakeside town into the epicenter of one of the most shocking crimes of 2025. What no one suspected was that the real danger was never a stranger lurking in the shadows. It was the person standing closest to Elena, the one she trusted most. In March 2025, the quiet lakeside town of Briar, Glen, woke up to news that felt both confusing and frightening. 29-year-old school counselor Elena Morris had vanished without warning. She lived alone in a small white house near Cedar Lake, a peaceful area known for morning joggers and children riding bikes after school. Elena was described as dependable and calm. She rarely missed work, always answered messages, and followed a steady routine. That was why her sudden disappearance immediately felt wrong. On Sunday evening, neighbors saw her porch light on as usual. By Monday morning, nothing seemed unusual from the outside. Her car remained parked neatly in the driveway. The curtains were half drawn, just as she often left them at night. When she failed to arrive at school and did not respond to calls, concern quickly turned into alarm. Police officers entered her home later that afternoon. Inside, everything appeared almost frozen in time. A mug sat on the kitchen counter with dried coffee at the bottom. Her purse rested beside it, wallet still inside. Her phone was charging on her bedside table. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, and no shattered glass. The house looked calm, undisturbed. Only one detail seemed slightly out of place: a wooden kitchen chair lying on its side near the table. It was not smashed or damaged, simply tipped over. Search teams began combing the surrounding woods and scanning the shoreline of Cedar Lake. Volunteers joined in, hoping she had wandered off and needed help. Hours passed, then days. No footprints, no witnesses, no clues. Elena Morris had simply disappeared, leaving behind a house that looked as though she might walk back in at any moment. As days passed with no physical evidence, investigators turned their attention to Elena's digital life. What they uncovered shifted the direction of the case entirely. 2 weeks before her disappearance, Elena had searched online for information about identity theft, online loan fraud, and how to report financial scams. At first, detectives thought she might have been researching for a school safety workshop, but her browsing history showed repeated searches late at night, suggesting something more personal. Her bank statements revealed a pattern of small transfers made to an unfamiliar account. The amounts were not large enough to immediately trigger fraud alerts, but they were consistent. Someone had been slowly siphoning money from her savings. When analysts traced the destination, they found it connected to a newly registered company with no public presence. Digging deeper into her laptop, forensic experts discovered a hidden folder buried beneath unrelated files. Inside were screenshots of suspicious emails, loan confirmations she claimed she never applied for, and copies of her personal identification documents attached to unfamiliar applications. It appeared someone had been using her identity to secure quick online loans. The evidence suggested Elena had discovered the scheme herself. Metadata showed she had opened and organized the files just days before she vanished. She had not reported the fraud to authorities yet, but she was clearly gathering proof. Investigators traced the company's listed address to an abandoned warehouse outside Briar, Glen. When officers searched the building, they found it nearly empty. Dust covered the floor, and broken shelves lined the walls. One small detail stood out: a security camera mounted in a corner, wires still connected. Its storage system had been wiped clean. Someone had erased their tracks carefully. And now detectives believed Elena's disappearance was no longer random. It was connected to a crime. As investigators searched for anyone who might be connected to the financial scam, attention slowly shifted toward Elena's immediate surroundings. Living next door was a quiet man named Caleb Ward. He had moved into the neighborhood about 6 months earlier. Most residents knew very little about him. He worked from home, rarely attended local gatherings, and kept his blinds closed most evenings. To neighbors, he was simply private, not suspicious. When detectives first questioned him, he appeared calm and cooperative. He stated that he and Elena had only exchanged brief greetings. He claimed he spent most of his time working online and had no involvement in her personal life. At that stage, there was nothing directly linking him to the case. However, a deeper background investigation revealed troubling inconsistencies. The previous address Caleb had listed on rental paperwork did not match any official property records. His stated employer had no record of him. Even his credit history seemed unusually thin for someone his age. It was as if large parts of his past were missing. Police obtained a search warrant for his home. Inside, they found multiple laptops, external hard drives, and a collection of prepaid debit cards stored in a drawer. Forensic experts quickly identified connections between his devices and the shell company used to transfer Elena's money. IP logs showed activity linked to fraudulent loan applications. Then came the discovery that shocked everyone. Inside a locked desk drawer, officers found Elena's missing phone. The device had been factory reset, wiping most of its data. Although there were no visible fingerprints, its presence in his home was deeply incriminating. Caleb Ward was arrested on suspicion of fraud and possible involvement in Elena's disappearance. For many in Briar, Glen, it seemed the mystery had finally been solved. But the evidence would soon take the investigation in an unexpected direction. Weeks after Caleb Ward's arrest, heavy spring rain changed the course of the investigation. Floodwater from Cedar Lake caused part of the shoreline to erode, pulling loose soil away from the base of several trees. During a routine follow-up search of the area, a volunteer noticed something unusual beneath an uprooted trunk. The ground looked recently disturbed compared to the hardened earth around it. Authorities secured the scene and began digging carefully. Within hours, they uncovered a body buried less than a mile from Elena's home. The remains were wrapped in a plastic sheet and concealed beneath shallow layers of soil. Dental records later confirmed what the town feared. It was Elena Morris. The medical examiner determined she had been sedated before her death. There were no defensive wounds, no clear signs of a violent struggle. Toxicology reports suggested she had been given a strong prescription-grade sedative. The timeline matched the night she disappeared. The discovery appeared to strengthen the case against Caleb. The burial site was close to both homes, and he was already linked to the financial fraud. Prosecutors felt confident they had both motive and opportunity. Public opinion quickly turned harsh. Many residents believed justice was near. But forensic testing began to raise questions. Soil samples taken from Caleb's boots did not match the composition of soil at the burial site. Experts found differences in mineral content and moisture patterns. More importantly, cell tower data revealed that Caleb's phone had been active across town throughout the entire night Elena vanished. Surveillance footage from a gas station placed him miles away during a critical window of time. The case that once seemed airtight began to fracture. Investigators faced a troubling possibility. Someone had carefully planted evidence to frame him, and the real killer was still free. With the case against Caleb collapsing, investigators returned to the beginning and reviewed every detail they may have overlooked. They re-examined Elena's phone records, her recent meetings, and the people closest to her. That is when attention slowly shifted toward her longtime friend, Maya Bennett. Maya had been one of the most visible supporters during the search efforts. She helped organize volunteer groups, posted emotional updates online, and stood beside Elena's family during press briefings. Her grief appeared genuine. For weeks, no one questioned her involvement. However, financial investigators discovered something deeply troubling. The shell company used to transfer Elena's stolen funds had been registered under layers of digital anonymity. After tracing payment authorizations and hidden metadata, analysts uncovered a silent partner linked to the company. The name connected back to Maya. Further analysis showed that Elena had accessed documents tying Maya to the fraud just days before she disappeared. Timestamps indicated she had compiled evidence late at night, possibly preparing to confront someone. Location data from traffic cameras revealed Maya's car traveling towards Cedar Lake around the same time Elena was last seen. When police searched Maya's home, they found a prepaid burner phone hidden inside a storage container. Data from that device showed repeated connections to Caleb's Wi-Fi network in the weeks leading up to the murder. Investigators concluded the burner phone had been used to plant digital traces that would frame him. The plan had been calculated. By exploiting Caleb's mysterious background, Maya created the perfect suspect. She transferred funds, manipulated digital evidence, and secretly placed Elena's reset phone inside his desk while he was away. But she failed to anticipate the rain that would uncover the grave. The investigation now pointed clearly in one direction, and the betrayal cut deeper than anyone expected. By the time the case reached court, it had already captured national attention. News outlets described it as one of the most shocking crimes of 2025. What made it disturbing was not only the murder itself, but the careful digital manipulation behind it. Prosecutors laid out a timeline that showed months of planning, financial desperation, and calculated deception. Financial records presented in court revealed that Maya had been struggling with mounting debt. Credit cards were maxed out, personal loans were overdue, and collection notices had been sent repeatedly in the months before Elena's death. The shell company had been created shortly after her financial situation worsened. Experts testified that the company's registration had been masked using encrypted networks and prepaid services to avoid detection. Digital forensic specialists reconstructed deleted files from the burner phone found in her home. They traced connections between that device and Caleb's Wi-Fi network, proving that someone had intentionally created activity that would later point investigators toward him. Metadata from Elena's laptop showed she had gathered clear evidence of the fraud and linked it directly to Maya just days before she was killed. Surveillance footage and vehicle tracking data placed Maya near Cedar Lake on the night of the disappearance. Combined with toxicology reports confirming the use of sedatives, prosecutors argued that the murder had been carefully executed to avoid signs of struggle. The defense attempted to challenge the digital evidence, but independent experts confirmed its authenticity. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Maya Bennett was found guilty of first-degree murder, identity fraud, and obstruction of justice. Caleb Ward was formally cleared of all charges and released. For the town of Briar, Glen, relief mixed with disbelief. The real threat had never been a mysterious outsider. It had been someone trusted. Months after the trial concluded and Maya Bennett began serving her life sentence, investigators continued reviewing the case files to ensure nothing had been missed. What they uncovered added another disturbing layer to an already shocking crime. During a routine audit of Elena's financial history, authorities found updated life insurance documents filed shortly before her death. The policy had originally been created years earlier when Elena and Maya shared an apartment during college. At that time, they had listed each other as emergency beneficiaries for practical reasons. Most people would have updated such paperwork after moving on with life. Elena had recently revised her policy, but one section still named Maya as a partial beneficiary. The payout was significant. It was more than enough to clear Maya's debts entirely and leave money to spare. Investigators realized that Maya had likely been aware of the policy. Digital searches recovered from her devices showed she had reviewed information about insurance claim timelines and beneficiary rights weeks before the murder. This suggested the financial fraud alone may not have been her only motive. Silencing Elena would prevent exposure of the scam, but would also unlock a large insurance payment. The realization stunned even experienced detectives. The crime was not an impulsive act driven only by fear of being caught. It was layered with calculation and greed. Maya had carefully positioned herself to benefit both before and after Elena's death. For Elena's family, this discovery reopened emotional wounds. The betrayal was deeper than anyone imagined. A friendship that had lasted more than a decade had been reduced to financial opportunity in Maya's mind. The case now stood as more than a story of fraud and framing. It was a chilling reminder that trust, once broken by greed, can turn into something far more dangerous. By the end of 2025, the Briar Glen case had become a reference point in discussions about modern crime and digital evidence. Legal experts, investigators, and forensic analysts studied it closely. What made the case unforgettable was not just the murder, but how easily technology had been used to mislead authorities and nearly destroy an innocent person's life. Caleb Ward spent months rebuilding his reputation after being publicly labeled a killer. Though officially cleared, suspicion lingered in some corners of the internet. The damage caused by false assumptions proved difficult to erase. His case highlighted how quickly digital traces can appear convincing, even when they are carefully planted. Law enforcement agencies reviewed their procedures for handling electronic evidence. New verification steps were introduced in several departments to ensure data was cross-checked before arrests were made. The investigation demonstrated that digital footprints, while powerful, can be manipulated by someone with patience and technical knowledge. For the residents of Briar Glen, life slowly returned to normal routines. The lake became busy again during summer. Children rode bikes along the same streets where search parties once gathered. Yet the memory of what happened never fully faded. A simple missing person report had uncovered fraud, betrayal, manipulation, and calculated murder. Elena Morris was remembered as more than a victim. Her case exposed weaknesses in systems people trusted. It forced authorities to rethink assumptions and reminded communities that danger does not always come from strangers. The twists in this case felt almost unreal, as though written for a film. Yet no movie script could truly capture the quiet shock that settled over Briar Glen. The realization that sometimes the most chilling crimes are hidden behind ordinary faces and familiar smiles.